I haven't seen. Was everyone aware of the Docker Hub changes today?
Yeah, I was aware. I'm wondering how we are actually going to be affected.
So you're just hoping for the best and tackle it when it happens, right?
No, if I understood it correctly, it's going to limit the number of pools from the same IP if you're not authenticated, right? So I guess with the way that we set up our runners, we won't really face any real issue because we have like use and throw away runners because we use spot instances that they have a different IP every time.
Well, that could be good and could be bad because if you happen to get an IP that somebody else, although it'd be very unfortunate, but an IP that somebody else had just used and done some stuff with, but
Okay, but at that point, it's just a matter of waiting for the runner to go down and then restart the job.
fair, fair. Um, yeah. So, um, right. I think I've almost managed to clear all my junk off my screen. I'm going to get that MR up that you shared, Jim.
Thank you.
No worries.
I'm trying to get it working on my machine right now, or get GDK to work.
I'm
My
hoping
Podman's throwing a fit.
mine's in a reasonable state, but it always kind of depends on um like where my master is against your branch, etc. So what I'll try and do is check out.
And they told me the good news that I have a merge conflict today, but I have a feeling
Uh
that it is due to the most recent change that I made to try to fix the issue. So I edited some other random tests, and I think we can just discard that altogether.
okay. Okay. So let's hope I haven't updated my GDK2 recently, so I shouldn't get that conflict. Hope. Let's see what happens. So yeah, let's find one of the failing tests. So Mark, I don't know if you looked back at the discussion here as well, but the long and short of it is, and I think Karas has shared a similar scenario where like the pipeline's all good when run on the fork, but then there's errors, failing tests when run on canonical by a team member. Um, and I think it's as simple as that we don't run the FOS pipeline for fork, yeah, when it's a fork, but we do on canonical, and that's where all of the failures are, I think. But now I might eat those words. Oh no, yeah, actually, that's not that.
So
So
if
the,
you open that one up, if I remember correctly, it's a failure due to a timeout,
okay.
and which seems very unlikely that the change I made would have purposely timed it out, if that makes sense. But it's also
Oh,
strange because when I run a normal RSpec in the command line for my tests that I affected, they pass successfully.
yeah. I mean, this doesn't look like a timeout. Um, but I know when I was looking at it earlier, I was a little bit confused what I was looking at trying to diff. I think it's basically saying it can't find this, and it's expecting to find this in. in here. But yeah, maybe I could run it locally. If shared examples are always a bit of a pain. There is a way to do it with descriptions. Dash E or something like that. So then, is it Dash E? Does anyone know? Or
For what?
to be able to pass like the description rather than when you've got a shared example and you can't tell it like line 77, you have to give it like the description of the like this instead.
Oh, I don't know because
Probably completely nonsense, but we'll find out, I guess.
Because you don't know which one of the specs. Otherwise, you could also use the only flag on the spec.
Yeah, maybe. And I suppose I. So
I don't even remember what my branch name was. What branch was it?
looks like it might work. Okay, so I'm getting the same failure. So what it could actually be, now thinking about it, depends what do I call it? What your base merge request base is. So I think your pipeline runs a normal merge request pipeline, whereas a team member would run a merged result pipeline. So I suspect, yeah, merge results versus merge requests. So what I suspect, let's have a look how far behind you are. Yeah, 8,000 commits. So it's basically changes that have happened in Canonical since you branched off. So if you rebase, you will be able to get this failure locally as well.
All right, so let me ask this question. So if when I rebase, what's the easiest way to just to deal with the merge result or the merge? I'm blanking on it.
The conflict?
Yes.
Good question.
Because
So
rebase master, right? And then it should fast forward all my results and I force push everything, right?
yeah, let me just have a look. Like the simplest way, or there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. Like for example, although still it's going to say there's conflicts. Yeah, I would generally squash first. That always makes my life easier because sometimes you end up resolving the same conflict 4 times when you do your rebase. So I would probably squash first and then do your rebase, and then at least you should only have to resolve the conflict once.
What's the squash command?
So I use an interactive rebase to do a squash, but I don't know if there's more straightforward. I can try and show you, see what I've got set up, and I can kind of do it here and either push or not push depending on how we get on. So the problem is it might work. It might work. So if I do a fetch community,
For some reason, I cannot see your command because Zoom has cut off the bottom of it.
Oh, I think you have to like move your mouse or not move your mouse for a few seconds, and then the Zoom like full screens. If not, I'll
that's what
I just move my window up a little bit. If I can, there you go. That might help.
Thank you.
No worries. Your branch always takes such a beast of a repository. Come on. I guess. I'm going to try and multitask while while I'm waiting for this. If I've got the GDK project somewhere. Surprises me that I haven't. Right. Okay, so now I should be able to check out your branch from community. And then, so what I tend to do, so these are your commits, and then this is the last previous, the commit prior to your commits. So I tend to do a git rebase against the previous commit -I. It's probably the worst way to do it, but we shall see. And then I use fix up rather than squash. I don't know if they do the same thing.
There's fix up doesn't keep the commit message.
Okay. So that will then sort of squash all these three into this one.
So essentially you're taking 4 commits and putting it down to 1. It's a brand new commit hash or whatever it's called.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay. And so then it looks like just one big commit then.
So the history now shows just this one. We can, if we want to, we can hit commit amend, because I guess you did several commits with different messages, so you want to do that. I probably in the interactive rebase could have done the reword option or something along those lines. Now I can get rebase.
And that was just rebase -I, right? You did?
Yeah, so I had to put the previous commit SHA, or if your master branch, if you haven't updated your master, if your master is still on this commit, then you can do git rebase master -I. But it needs to know, like, what the base or the head or someone that knows Git better than me can use the correct terminology.
What I usually do in this case is I go to the EMR, I see the number of commits, and then I just do git rebase -I head tilde the number of commits.
So head squiggly brace 4 or head?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Nice. I'll try and remember that one. I definitely need a cheat sheet like I used to have in the good old days for things like Excel.
And then you have to push to actually push out the squash name commit.
Yes. So yeah, if you want to do your rebase locally and run that test and make sure the test fails, then that's a good start. I'll just have a look what I was. So, this is my live GDK, so I guess now is the time to break.
Before trying to run or squashing locally and check if the tests fail, I would honestly do a GDK update because you're so behind that probably it would fail anyway because there may have been other changes that you need bundle install GDK.
Yeah, so sorry, I guess I skipped over that because yeah, rebasing against your current master might still be 8,000 commits behind Canonical anyway. So yeah, sorry, do your squash. I would normally force push after the squash before rebasing. Do your GDK update, rebase against master, resolve your conflicts, another force push, and yeah, at that point your time match will be failing.
Okay, I'm trying to keep up with what you did. I did the squash on my side, and I get an entirely different UI from what you had.
Yeah,
It's
that's
all in Nano.
Yeah, okay.
He's running GitLens in his studio too, so, or in his code.
Do you can you can you guess your way through? I think you can. I think you select like maybe press up and down and just put an F at the beginning of the line, and then close the Control X. I think will close Nano, and then the F will be interpreted as a fix up on the commits that you want to kind of
So
squash down.
F for the first three, but not the last one, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
yeah, and you have to remove peak.
Okay, so the last one should be squash. Is that correct?
Now, the last one should be peak because that commit will be used as a base, and then the other three should be F instead of peak for fix up.
Okay. Lee, do you mind if I share?
No, please do. Let me stop mine.
All right, so I got, let me get rid of that share thing. So I got, cannot do this, so I'm just going to abort.
Yep.
Yeah.
Head 4.
Yep.
And then
That's the first one, right?
oh, when you said first, I
So
was
you are yeah, okay. So that actually shows it in the opposite order. Interesting.
Yeah.
So like that then?
Yep.
Give that a try. Yeah. It's looking more promising.
And
So
then
now,
it's,
if you want to do a git log, just to sort of have a look at how it looks. That looks like mine did.
Yep.
I think so.
And then I just do GDK
No.
update.
No.
Git push
Yes.
force.
Instead of using just force, I usually do force with lease.
Yeah. Yeah.
With lease, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This way, if someone else has already pushed, you won't override their comments.
Okay. And what's the
working on a branch of your own? Usually it doesn't happen, but you never know.
What tends to happen to me is occasionally I'll apply a suggestion in the GitLab UI and I'll forget that I've applied that suggestion. And if I did a force push, I would lose it. But by using this force with lease, it's like a safe force that will only force it if you previously had an up to date. They're very complicated, but
okay. And then to push without all the
CI.
not pipeline. Yes, not CI.
Okay, so you can do dash no verify.
No verify.
No dash verify.
And I would probably skip the pipeline as well.
Oh.
Yeah, my password expired yesterday, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would possibly add -o ci.skip as well because we don't really want it to run the pipeline when it pushes up either because we're going to do another rebase we're going to update and rebase and do some other stuff. So
okay, I think I stopped sharing. I'm going to switch out my access token real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
And then I will push.
I've been using Git for years now, and I've never done half of the stuff you're showing me here. So clearly, I work on my own branch. When my branch is ready to go, I push it upstream and deal with the merge. I mean, or I usually keep myself updated, so I do the merges almost every day from the main branch, so that I don't have that 8,000 commits behind kind of problem. I may be a few, but not 8,000. It's interesting. I mean, I want to know how to do this, but I've never had to do it.
So do you merge the sort of master branch or main branch into your feature branch rather than rebasing? Yeah, that's interesting. Yes. So I
mean, so generally if I start my day by going to the master, pulling in whatever's changed in it, then go back to mine, merge my version of the master or main into my changes so that I'm up to date. And then, so I end up with, like the problem I was fighting with where I get all these commit messages that your pipeline doesn't like, right?
Yes.
Was because I just don't worry about it. I mean, to me, my local Git repository is where I keep everything. So I end up with a 50 commits sometimes, depending on what I've been doing. So squashing it becomes necessary just to clean it up.
It's really interesting because like we are still working a little bit on the assumption that you're the only one working on a branch, which I think eventually we're going to have to change out of that mindset, and we are going to have to start using merge. I don't know what you'd call it, like merge rebases rather than normal proper rebases. Because breaking the history isn't ideal if you're collaborating with others on a branch.
It's just I mean, I think it's kind of neat how it worked. I've never had, well, if I've had the need, I've found a different way to solve the problem.
Got it. So I mean, it's neat in looking clean, but I certainly always squash when I merge the MR, so it almost doesn't matter what the state of the commits and the history are on the MR. But one thing that I have I've learned to like is the fact that you can still see the history on the MR, even when you're sort of amending commits or squashing or rebasing, etc. You can still go back.
I'm not suggesting my approach is the better one. This is just something new to me to see how you're doing it. It's interesting.
As I say, I think they both have benefits, but I think if you're ever collaborating on a branch, then rebasing isn't really the right thing to do. Like your approach is the better of the two.
If you want to be absolutely horrified, I could describe how we do commits.
Go on, entertain us.
So, my company is not the most technologically forward. They pretend they are. So what they do is they have a Git repository, and then they set everyone to have permissions through Windows to this Git repository. We all open up. This is all on like a share. They then have everybody.
So you're not even using a local clone of the repo.
Hold on, Lee. It gets worse.
You can't get worse than that.
Everybody opens up VS Code to the same shared location, and they just edit the files in that Git repository. And then because it's all in one area, you can only have one checked out branch at a time. So everybody just edits and hopes that their conflicts don't take down prod.
Oh, that's insane.
It's horrible.
I mean, saying that,
I'm on a different team, and so I don't deal with them. But it's all one shared location that everyone's editing on. And because the Git, when you do Git, and you have the commit stuff, because the username stored in the file structure of your stuff, everybody uses the same Git user, so it all looks like it all came from one person as well.
It makes me wonder, like, why, like, what benefit are you You getting it's basically version control in its most basic form, right?
You could go back to RCS. If you look at the history of version control, before SVN, before CVS, there was RCS. RCS was like a single person doing exactly what you're doing. It gave you the same ability to get a history and everything of file changes. And all of the stuff that came later, including concurrent versioning, which is multiple people, right? And then Subversion and then Git is all about evolution, right? And yeah, you're using it like it's RCS.
It's really interesting because I think we've all got slightly like maybe not exactly similar, but certainly we went from nothing to everything almost. Like we went from SVN where we weren't branching, it was just commit, commit, commit. But at least there was, it was attached to a user and there was a commit message that related to a ticket on a system somewhere. But you never quite knew, which commit is running on production and which commit is running on test. And you couldn't take features from different, no branching and that to then lovely world today with feature branches and a test branch and a development branch. And so how it's changed is amazing.
I guess that here in this story, I cannot really complain anymore about some part of it's not even using it.
Yeah, it gets real fun, especially because they're trying to use it now to deploy to other servers, like keep 3 servers in sync, and then they're like, it should just overwrite all my changes. I don't care what's in these servers, overwrite them. And it's just a lot of fun using Git how Git's not supposed to be used.
I don't envy your CTO.
So I'm doing a Git or a GDK update right now, and then I'm just going to do a rebase on top of my MAR.
Exactly. Yep. And
so
that will surface the conflicts if there are conflicts.
Yep.
You can resolve them and see if the tests fail for you.
It'll probably take another 2 hours for my GDK update.
So I have a GDK question while we're waiting.
Yeah, far away.
So, as you're aware, Lee, I just started all this stuff last week, really. So I'm still working on setup issues and figuring out interesting things. So I have a Zen-based hypervisor on a system here, right? So that I use for, I spin up a VM for whatever, right? So it's running on a Linux box that's got lots of memory and horsepower and disk space and stuff. So I took the VBox image that GDK in a box came in, broke it into a raw disk file, which I read somewhere as a way to do it, because then I can literally point Zen at it and say, hey, use this as the disk image and bring it up. And it works. I mean, it took me a few things to figure out, in particular, because I didn't read the configuration file for the VBox. I didn't give it enough memory. I didn't give it enough. Yeah. So now I've got it running in 16 gig of RAM and 8 CPUs, so I can keep it happy with that. But it still sucks in terms of performance. I mean, as in when I connect to it, it's local. It's literally right beside me, right? And I say, go to that port 3000, pull up the page, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. I mean, hell, I can pull up GitLab.com faster over my internet than I can pull up this locally spun up idle machine. And is it because it's a developer mode thing, or is there something I'm missing that the performance just sucks? I expect local on an unused machine to be really quick, and it's not.
Sorry, Lee. Are the project store on an SSD or on hard drive?
Everything's on the machine I'm running on has got 3 terabyte of SSD and 20 some CPUs, and
because I noticed more or less 2 months in the office, I had everything into my main SSD on the PC. Then basically that was full, so I moved Docker and its data to another hard drive, not an SSD, and the performance of an application really dropped, going through 2 seconds of page load, for example, to up more than 30 seconds. So that I moved it back to an SSD, and it fixed it all immediately. So it was definitely a data reading speed. But if you're on
Interesting.
an SSD,
Yeah, it is on SSD. I've got 2 different SSDs in there. I could try moving it off the one that. But even that, at that point, you're talking SSD speeds, and these are not ATA SSDs. These are the PCI bus ones. So it's about as quick a disk as you get.
I mean, I would definitely say GDK is a hell of a lot slower, like because it's running in development mode. 100%, it's a lot slower. But I would expect a dedicated VM, like running on bare metal with 16 gig of RAM and 8 CPU cores to run pretty snappy. We definitely are what's the word, spoiled with our ARM MacBooks. Like it does run really well on ARM, but it should on dedicated hardware, or dedicated hardware, you know what I mean, like a dedicated VM.
Well, it's idle hardware, even if it's
yeah.
It's just my personal server, so
it shouldn't be too terrible, especially like that. The image that you downloaded should have V or Vite enabled. I always get the name wrong, which is much better than Webpack. I'll share, although I'm running GDK update at the moment. I see it's doing a Postgres update amongst other things. So I guess I won't be sharing for a little while. Same as
I went through and did a GDK update, like yesterday, the day before, whatever, recently. Went through the truncate logs, went through the clean up the database thing just to remove just in case all of that was part of it. I mean, it might have made a difference, but it's still noticeably slow. Like literally when I connect to the page, it starts up with some of it and then it waits. I mean, it's not 30 seconds, but it's 10 or 15 versus instant,
So I think like 10's still quite bad. I would be expecting sort of maybe more around like 5 tops. Yeah, that's what I'd say, which I know is not great, and it does. There's weird behavior. Hopefully other people see this. Like if I navigate to a GDK page in one tab, and then I navigate to another GDK page in another tab, it causes the page in the first tab to reload, for example. That's some weird like hot reload weirdness sort of thing, but that doesn't tend to like keep happening, if that makes sense. It's like a bit of a one-off when you're first booting up.
One thing that comes to mind that affects, but not up to that point, the speed of the page is the performance bar at top.
Yes. Yeah, I disable that. That's a good idea.
Okay. How do I disable that?
Press PD.
Perfect performance buffer bar.
Okay, I'll see what that does to it. Because one of the things I was thinking about is grabbing just the community version of it. I mean, I want to do 2 things. I mean, I want GDK as my development environment, partially at least, right? For depending upon which particular piece I'm looking at. But I also want to use GitLab as my personal Git server, if you want, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want the performance that I'm seeing for that. And I'm wondering if I just spin up a different VM with the commercial or with the community release, and
have both. Definitely keep your GDK for being able to do development, and we can definitely look at also disabling. I don't know whether the rest of the team will kill me for suggesting this, but I've disabled. So I had issues with like when you start it, you'll notice that there's a bunch of different services, although you might not see that because it's under the hood.
Yeah.
But you've obviously got your Redis and your Postgres, but then you've got like Workhorse and Rails background jobs, and but then more recently we started to add. There's a HTTP router, and there's a topology service, and there's an AI gateway, and there's all these new bits and pieces that are coming up. And unless you're specifically working on development of certain features, some of these things you just don't need. So it might be that we can also disable a few of those extra components as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely do 100% spin up a, I don't know what your Linux flavor of choice is, and just install so install EE rather than CE, even if you're not going to license it. You do get a slightly better feature set, and if at any point in the future you do decide to purchase any bits and pieces, it just makes it a lot easier. But essentially, EE without a license is exactly the same as CE.
Okay.
So I recommend installing that one. But yeah, just follow the sort of off the shelf install guide. And yeah, it amazed me like when I first installed it as well, because again, like I guess I was naive to the fact that GitLab.com is running, you know, millions of customers or whatever it might be. So, you know, your performance will be far, far, far superior to GitLab.com, not just because you're sitting right next to it, but because of the fact that, you know, there's so little data in the database. So,
Right. Well, I expected to have at least the same performance on my local machine that I was seeing on the net, right? I mean, I've got fast
yeah,
internet, but it was still crazy that they were
yeah,
that
no,
noticeably different.
that'll definitely be the difference between running the development environment in sort of,
Okay.
yeah, versus production mode.
Okay, I'll spin up a VM with it and see what it does. I mean, I basically run Ubuntu LTS versions for most stuff, unless I'm trying to get onto the bleeding edge. So it's
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I run a self-managed and was using Debian until recently, and I've moved it to the cloud, and I now run it on Amazon Linux, and they all work equally well, to be honest.
yeah.
One thing for GDK that I did notice, if you want to help improve performance, mind you, I don't do this often, maybe like once a month. Go and repack your Git repository. The reason for that is it gets just absolutely massive, tons of pack files. And then when it tries to go and update and fast forward, it's just more pack files that it has to go through. So by actually repacking, it's not something that's in the GDK itself. It's just
Right.
a Git command you run.
Is
And
that
It's just
Git
yeah.
GC or Git repack or?
let me grab the command that I run real quick.
Awesome, thank you. Because I do from time to time have issues, and Git tells me to run Git GC. But
It
yeah,
is not Git GC, it's Git repack. So what it does is it
Okay.
takes all of your objects that you have and it reconstructs the entire pack objects and everything.
Is it a lengthy operation or?
Depends on how big the repository is. GitLab usually takes me a couple hours.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
But it shrinks from like 10 gigs for the GitLab repo down to like 3.
Oh,
So
awesome.
it's a big change.
I wonder if the housekeeping on Gitaly does this.
I think it does when it runs on GitLab itself. But it does not, because you don't get those benefits when you're running on your local machine, because Gitaly runs in the cloud and then just sends over the different packs.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing to actually clean anything up.
Interesting.
Because you only
how's
get
your GDK update going?
It's running make. It's make GitLab setup. It's been stuck on there for a while, so
I'll share mine again. I managed to get to the end. So interestingly enough, the thing that I was going to try and spin a quick MR up for is actually what this most recent announcement is. So for team members, we're now automatically enabling let's meet YAML telemetry. So in here somewhere, yeah, we've got telemetry enabled, and The problem is that some, I don't know if ad blocker is quite the right term. Maybe ad blocker. Yeah, maybe ad blocker. Block the telemetry, which is now I've got to remember, is it defined in here? Yeah, so it's going. I mean, it seems remarkable that they've blocked glproductanalytics.com, but hey, maybe they have.
A lot of them take a look and see analytics in the name, and it blocks based off of regexes. That's how I have stuff set up here at my place.
Fair. So I did pop an issue link. See if I can find it. So here, where does it? Yes. I have no idea. Is this a Mac command or apparently so?
Given who wrote that, I guess so.
Dig is predates Max.
Yeah, it's a standard Linux command.
Or even Unix before Linux, yeah. Dig's been around a long time.
I didn't know IP tables is something would on a Mac, but hey, no, it isn't. So much for that. I guess I can maybe fake it by, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second, but if I add to my hosts file and just point it to like 127.0.0.1 or something.
Do .2 so that it doesn't resolve to you.
Oh, okay. So now when I dig, okay. Why is it ignoring my hosts file?
Is that on your local machine or in a VM?
Local.
You may need to flush if you've resolved it before you change your host file.
Yeah, flush the DNS.
Okay, so I know how to do that on Windows. I have no idea on Mac. Any ideas?
ipconfig/flush DNS, no?
No. Oh, maybe it is.
Oh, whoa.
No, maybe not.
Help.
It's not IP config, surely. We're not on Windows. Duo, help us.
Wait, I'll get if other if I'll get the option. I get summer get packet. Yes.
There you go. DNS cache util. Yay.
And then kill what?
Well, you're doing a SIG-hop, which tells it to reload. SIG-hop in most Unixy things means reload your config files.
It all seems to be resolving. I have no idea. It's just going to stop.
What was your host file? Because you have to put you can't just do like star dot whatever. You have to put the whole URL.
No, yeah, I put 127.0.0.2 space and then collector.prod1.glproductanalytics.com. Yeah. No idea why that's I'm gonna guess. I think all that we really want to do is, yeah, would it be? Brain is struggling. Does it begin?
Try.
No, I want to just do this basically.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Let's see if it. I don't think it will, but I just try to break it first. Video. Right, so it's definitely executing that code, which is great. And it's hung, which I think means my DNS hack has worked. And eventually it's going to time out. So I actually use it in 0.01 because then it should immediately explode because it won't resolve the, you know what I mean? The basically be a Sentry server or whatever it's expecting on the other end. Perfect. Yeah. So we get a nice error there, and it causes an explosion. So if I really need to begin, do I can just have the rescue? And do I need to be clever about it, or? Now, is GDK running from the installed gem, or is it running from this code? Oh, it must be this code because it was printing hello, right?
Yep.
So that rescue obviously enough.
What if you try to put something on the rescue to see if it's passing through there?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because no, but it wouldn't have done a stack trace, would it? I don't mean.
No, it's not going through there. And
It's not begin, is it? What?
does it need another end?
Rest. Okay. Begin. Oh yeah. Okay. It should be indented.
And with another end.
Yeah. Still stack trace. What's it complaining about?
So is track returning something? And then send telemetry needs to return that? No.
I think so. And the stack trace isn't really going back far enough for me, I don't think.
So just as a side note, changing subject slightly, I did the git repack command that Jim posted there, and it's just finished. So my disk and CPU performance on my GDK has no trouble in whatever this has been 10 minutes doing
I
that.
think
That
you've
whole
got a very
repository repack.
recent like you only pulled it recently, right? So I guess you have done an update. So that
Yeah,
might have.
I've done update a couple times in fact, I couldn't even get it to run the first time until I did the first update. So
All I know is I'm still doing my GDK update.
well, the biggest time consumer to me was actually, I thought it would be disk, but it's actually CPU. When it does the compression of 4.5 million objects, I mean, mine was using 8 threads because I got 8 CPUs to it. If I gave it more CPUs, it'd probably be twice as, if I gave it 16 CPUs, it probably would have been in half the time again. So
Right.
it spent iterating over 4.5 million objects and recompressing them is pure CPU work, I think.
Yeah, my issue, I think, for my GDK is I have 64 gigs of RAM, but I'm running my GDK in a Podman container on Windows. So,
Okay.
though it has all that access, I have all that overhead, and I have 12 CPU cores, but it's just so slow.
So that, I guess the way I looked at it was that isn't why my system's slow for whatever the reason is. It's not CPU and disk. I think it's something, but I'm going to go, I'm going to, like I said, for, I don't mind when I'm testing something for it to run at whatever speed, but just for my regular use, I think I'll spin up as you said, suggested an EE install on another VM and use that as my server.
Yeah. The other thing you probably have not experienced yet is GDK breaks a lot, at least for me. When you're doing a lot of updates, I guess.
I guess that's the joy of working on the bleeding edge too, though, to a certain extent, right? I mean, yeah, I get it. I mean, I haven't experienced it, but I get it that it happens.
So why is try catch not working?
Because you got people watching you. When somebody watches what you're doing, it always doesn't work.
No,
Isn't that the truth?
The observer effect.
I have the feeling that track itself inside there somewhere is handling the exception and printing the stack.
Oh yeah, but then it's not. So do you think it's not actually crashing as such? You think if I were to put hello, well, it's because I was putting in the rescue and it's never going to the rescue, but it is actually no, it's not hitting the hello.
Yep.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's doing it after your hello.
Yeah, that's strange.
So let's just see if I run this. I think it's
Is it
it's
because
async.
I was going to say, is it because it's also potentially not flushing the buffer before you do it?
Yeah, potentially. So interesting. So that suggests that it's not actually. What I'm confused about now is, I'm just going to stop sharing again, whether the error that was shared actually was an error or just a warning. Because if it's just a warning, then that doesn't hugely matter.
By the way, I'm basically at time, so
yeah, likewise. Yeah, it's just a warning, actually. Okay, so that's probably why it's not not hitting the catch or the rescue or whatever. Cool. Okay. Thanks for joining, Marco. I'll just hang for 2 more seconds in case there are any other questions. Rick, Himanshu sort of started a dialogue with you, right, about the Rust stuff.
He said, well, I haven't looked this morning yet to see if he's responded to I mean, yes, I want to work on it one way or the other. So we need to figure out between us what that translates into.
It's I think I get the impression he's very much open to kind of, there's not a lot of seats at the table, voices at the table, whatever you want to call it. So really open to your views and your thoughts on the direction. I was looking at, because I didn't want I didn't want to block what you were doing. Obviously, I wanted that indentation. Like that's why you picked it up, which I was super appreciative of. However, that when I then looked at the kind of the proposal in that other issue, I was like, right, okay, I understand that, and actually maybe it's not quite as big a rewrite as I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Well, see, part of the problem, and I found that even with what I did, I mean, I still have to fight with whatever that one error I got is, but I mean, it's the output is not structured right. Even with the way I've done it, I don't like the way it's working, because really what I want to do is take a step back from that. And I'm okay if he doesn't want this, what I've done. I mean, for me, it was a learning experience. So I'm okay if I throw it all away. But I want to go back and say, I want to separate the output and the formatting from the part, or from the iteration where we go through the data. Okay. Because basically that routine is iterating through the data and building the output and the formatting at the same time.
Right.
And I really want to separate the two so that I literally have a iteration over the data and a output routine that manages indentation, and not have them combined. And right now, I mean, they were combined originally. I didn't change that. And it really takes another level of refactoring again. So
well,
I
guess I guess the solution that the proposal in that issue does then separate, right? Because it would basically say, put your input in, convert it to, I think the suggestion was essentially almost key value pairs. I mean, and it's essentially setting true to a number of keys. I don't know if I'd quite call them key values, maybe, which then would determine which bits of essentially a static GraphQL query would be executed. So catch you later, Marco. So I think I'm definitely interested to know if you like that idea or proposal of essentially just having the static.
So one of the problems I have, to be fair, is I'm not familiar with GraphQL. As an example. I mean, my use of queries in GitLab have been, let's go find something simple, and it works, right? So it isn't, it's really hard to figure out the best way to output something for GraphQL without understanding, or without really knowing well the constructs or the grammar of GraphQL.
Okay.
Right. So I wasn't really, I mean, I'm not saying I can't, I just don't know it. Right. So so you basically parse the input into some kind of abstract syntax tree, whatever you want to call the intermediate form internally. And then you generate, you optimize it, whatever you want to call it. You do the analysis phase and all that. And then you take that resultant internal representation and you output it in a way that lines up well with the target. And I don't know the target, so it's hard to say. What's the best way to generate the code if you don't know the language you're writing it in, kind of thing. So, I mean, I've learned some of it, obviously, just trying to play with it. But
I mean, I think the theory is that, and I don't even know how to do an example, but like what we kind of almost are suggesting is that we could dump every single I don't know if I've got like LinkedIn, Skype. There's not a Skype, obviously. Twitter. Like we could just dump every single, have a static GraphQL query, which would essentially pull all of the information out of GitLab, and then that just keeps it really nice and clean and simple. Then each one of these, we can just have directives. That essentially, and I don't know if I can do if false. Yes. So by just having a directive against everything, but I don't know if that's a horrible idea or not. To just conditionally include every single piece of this based on what the parser spat out.
I'm not sure that's very optimal, but you know what I'm saying is, like, if how much do we know up front that we can optimize? You know, like why include it at all if we know it's not there? But we don't know it's not there because it, you know, so we want to include it if the user asks for it up front and we don't know in the middle, then we want to say something like this, right? So we only include it if it's there. Or do we want to include it even if it's empty? You know, it's a choice, I guess.
I think that the thinking is at the moment we're basically building it as a string.
Yeah, and that's the other question is, I mean, and that goes back to what I was saying about the code generator. At the end of the day, the code generator is generating a long string.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we look at it instead as a stream, and a stream can be a string or it can be a file or it could be whatever we want, then our output isn't all about string concatenation, right? Which is what the code currently is doing. It's basically just concatenating a longer and longer and longer string.
Yes.
So that's why I say I want to refactor that code generator again. I mean, there's two different problems here, regardless of what I end up helping with, is I think the back end, the code generator needs to be separated into pre-walk or internal data structure walk and output formatting. Right now they're combined. Okay, so that needs to be done because if we separate them, then adding your indentation is easy, right? And right now it isn't because it was harder than I expected. I was looking for the easy and found it harder.
You're definitely aligned with the separation.
Yeah.
And then it's just a case of whether what the new bit looks like, if that makes sense. So it's like, okay, let's, instead of spitting out and not having a clue about Rust, I don't know, does key value pairs make sense to you or some other kind of data structure, do you know, or aren't really sure at the moment?
I don't really know for sure whether it's, I mean, Rust isn't the issue. Rust is its own set of issues, but that isn't going to be the issue. It's what's the best data structure for or representation for what we're trying to do with it. We pick that. We can make Rust do whatever we need to do. It's interesting, the conversation last week. I wish I'd been there in the. I mean, I watched the video right from last week's thing where you went through this. Rust is interesting because Rust moves the challenge from the output, from the product, to the developer. All of the problems you have are up front. If you can get Rust to compile, you're 90% plus of the way there. Where most languages, you can do whatever you want, the compiler will go, yeah, I'll do that. And then it breaks when you run it, or it breaks later out in the field when you're in production. So one of the strengths Rust brings is it piles all the problems up front. So it's very frustrating for the developer. But at least once you work through that, you have a much better product, which is one of the appealing features of it.
And I think that was the statement about it being safe, and that being one of the reasons that we chose to use it, right?
Yeah, and it's very performant. I mean, I'm a long time C guy. I mean, I've been doing C programming for 40 years, right? And I've done everything from OS internals to drivers to all the way up to whole systems, right? In C. I mean, before they got better languages for the front end. Well, there is better way. I mean, to me, you pick the right tool for the job, and C is not the right language for anything web-based, period. I mean, it's just pulling your hair out. I can't afford that. But Rust is the first language I've seen that I truly believe is a replacement. It's taken a long time, but it's now at the point where, I mean, I've got, you talked about that embedded little tutorial thing that you showed me when we first chatted, right? I've got a Pico W here that I've actually written some bare metal Rust code that brings up and drives a display. And it's like in 12K of code, 12K of code. I mean, I've got 128K or whatever on the thing, or some small number, and I can actually run up a display. Think of it as a sign. You wanted to have a sign displaying some messages, and it's like 12K of code. So it's and there's nothing. You're not going out of your way to do that. I mean, that's just how efficient it is space-wise, right? So no, Rust is definitely the replacement for anything low-level OS performance. And the strong type checking and the upfront work makes it much safer for a lot of things. Yeah, like I said before, Go and Rust are probably the two languages for anything systems level programming that you want to know if you're doing anything at the systems level now.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
yeah,
anything
and
that's
we've
close.
gone Go for a lot of stuff, so that kind of makes sense. Although, did you happen to notice the history of the project? So it wasn't originally in Rust.
It was in Haskell or something, and then
Yes, yes.
JavaScript, and then
Haskell, and I even have less clue about Haskell than I do about Rust. But anyway, I have to shoot now. But I think you'll probably exchange a few messages and figure out which way to go with that, and possibly arrange a coffee chat or something. If not, we'll set another one of these up where you can both be there and have a bit more of a conversation, because I'm super excited. I started to learn a little bit more over the last couple of days about where we're going with the GLQL stuff. I'll have to see if I can share. Like, I imagine it's all part of the roadmap and that, but it looks really exciting the way that we're going to use it going forwards. And in my head, I'm still looking at, not limiting the sort of thought process and conversations to, oh, this is for issues and work items and even merge requests, but like, let's use this for vulnerabilities, let's use this for time tracking, let's use this for contacts, let's use it for pipelines, for builds, like anything that you want to be able to display a custom view of. Or even the term custom's a bit weird there, but I can pick and choose what columns I want in a grid. I can decide how I want it filtered. Maybe I don't even want it in a grid. Maybe I want it in some slightly different structured, front end representation. I want to be able to apply functions, if that's the right term. So I think going forward, to be able to truncate a field to a certain length, or to be able to, I don't know, take just the surname of those kind of little bits and pieces at the moment where we're so limited on what we can do. Maybe I'm being a bit pipe dreamy and optimistic, but I love. I've worked with systems in the past where you have like this awesome kind of flexibility to create like fields on the fly that have functions or formulas or whatever you want to call it. So I'd love to see stuff like that going forward.
Well, Excel started as a spreadsheet, and now it's got a flight simulator in it, so you can do anything if you want. It's but yeah, I mean, no, I'm the I consider myself a back-end guy predominantly. Like the other thing I was looking at was the whole CLI thing, because that's the way I like using things. I don't want to wait for a browser to reformat a page. I want data, right? And being and I have no problem with being the pipeline in the middle. What we're doing here, where you're getting data in and we're producing data out in the best way we can with the most capabilities. But the current problem I have with the whole JavaScript stuff, it's like, I don't even know JavaScript. I got to go figure out why it's.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's missing the point in terms of what it's trying to accomplish from a testing point of view. But it is what you got, so we'll figure it out. I got it down to one error that I got to clean up, but we'll figure that out.
Awesome. Just Jim, quickly before we go, did your test? You need the command, do you, to run that test?
Yes, I know you pulled some really long path. Oh, I didn't manage to.
I forgot about that phrase. Yeah, and oh wow, yeah, it was insane. Sorry, I missed that. I'm fairly sure that will fail locally for you now.
All right, I will go ahead and run that, and I'll put in Discord
the results. Yeah, that's great. Stomach's rumbling. Thanks so much for joining, Rick, Jim, as always, and we'll continue to collaborate.
Sounds great.
Are you on the Discord, Rick?
Yeah, I'm on Discord. at Darval, Darval.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
You
just
scroll
very
up, you
interested.
scroll up one or two ahead of my ahead of your post on Discord. There, you'll see some conversations we were having.
Okay. I'm very interested in seeing where your thing goes. So
Awesome.
you were just
So am I.